Hi everybody. Good evening to you all. Thank you very much for joining us this evening for this Teamo webinar, which is talking about how you can use the platform through the lens of a sports academy. I've got Brad, who's joining us here today from Evo Group. So we'll hear more from him about himself and the organisation in a moment. In terms of the order of play, I will put questions to Brad here first in terms of the organisation and how they've used Teamo. But there will be an opportunity as well for you to ask us questions at the end, asking questions specifically to Brad and his experience. Anything that maybe he might not know the answer to, I'll try and pick up myself. But what I encourage you to do is to send us those questions through the chat function as we go. Obviously, you don't have to do that right away. You can obviously maybe pick up on something we might discuss in a moment. But please do keep those questions coming in. We'll answer as many of them as we can. Any that we can't get round to, again, we'll answer off the call and put those to you in the email. Without further ado, let's get started. So obviously, Brad, I've mentioned you a couple of times, but could you tell us a little bit about yourself really and your role at Evo?
Yep. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brother Chandler. I'm the director of the Evo Group. The Evo Group is a global organization that varies. We started off in foundational sports, so all the way from 3-year-old all the way to elite athletes, and we've just launched our own academy agency. Sorry, we have centres in England, Australia, Spain, Portugal, and South Africa. We're currently reaching out to over 10,000 students a week globally that are involved with our institution. So whether that be on the field, off the field. Um, so yeah, we're basically trying to help people as much as we can through sport. So yeah.
Lovely. And in terms of the sort of stuff, I suppose maybe more focused on what you guys are doing in the UK, maybe at the moment. What sort of like sessions and things like that are you putting on a regular basis?
Yeah, so my role day to day, alongside the Evo Group, is with our Evo Academy in Sheffield. We have over 200 active paying players. That goes from participation all the way through to in the Junior Premier League across the UK. So mainly we use Teamo was a massive help to us going forward and the players that we have. So yeah, that is my day to day role in terms of the football team aspect. Yeah.
Brilliant. And in terms of from your side, I mean, I imagine things might have sort of built up over time in terms of the organization growing and the participation growing as
Yeah.
well. So, I mean, was there a particular moment that you sort of felt you needed to find some form of technology to sort of help with the sort of the overall aim of the organization?
Yeah, like anything, we started off with one team, they progressed. So we started off at a U13s team. They all went all the way through. We start from the bottom again. So now we've got teams from under sevens all the way through to first team. And like I said, there's over 200 active members week in, week out through there. So I think there was a pivotal point, probably when we got a couple of teams, it becomes manageable-ish through various different WhatsApps and texts and things like that. But that's when we needed to reach out, and that's when we got in contact with you guys, and you got in contact with us.
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of you mentioned sort of some of the bits that were starting to become a little bit more tricky.
Yeah.
Were there any other sort of main challenges that you were finding you were, starting to have beyond just sort of the communication and the actual just growth of the database?
Yeah, well, essentially, like it always comes down to running a football club is, you need the financial side to back it up. And there's lots of people that work really hard for not a lot involved with football clubs, but that was a massive part for us because we still work on a pay-as-you-play basis. So any player that plays on the weekend will also have to pay their subs. That's hard to manage if somebody's in a squad that then doesn't play, things like that. And again, we're back to downloading spreadsheets of bank files and then matching them up. And again, it becomes a full-time role for somebody that isn't a paid role, if that makes sense. In a football club, it's just not sustainable.
No, absolutely. And in terms of, as you sort of already alluded to, there was a sort of a bit of contact and came across us and started having conversations with us. Um, what sort of out of the back of that, what sort of features have you sort of started to use straight away? How have you maybe found that when you sort of first came on board?
Well, yeah, straight away we piloted it with one of our teams for a few months, and again from yourself, Ben and John, who we know quite well. We were straight onto the system. We're really happy with it. Like I said, the main product for us, or the main side of it for us, is the squad selection. And as soon as the match is completed, we can then ping the players of that game and request the funds straight away from them.
Perfect. And in terms of the payment side of the system, I mean, as you've sort of said there, a lot of what you're doing is, other than the subs element, is also the sort of
Yeah,
pay as you play
yeah.
side of things. So, I mean, how have you found that particular element, and what things have you sort of found to be the main advantages?
Well, we were at 25% plus unpaid subs per season, and I think last season was our first full season with the maximum amount of members that we have. We got that down to around 3 or 4%, which is massive. I know you'll always have the anomalies. However, for that as an organisation, for 200 players playing every weekend, that soon racks up a considerable amount of money. And again, we know how tough it is for football teams and clubs out there to keep funding their club. So that was a massive help for us.
And in terms of the sort of feedback, and maybe sort of the engagement that you've found from the players, the parents, those who are obviously using it from their point of view, how have you sort of found that part of the process?
Very simple. I'll be honest with you, Ben. The system is brilliant. I'm not just saying it. No, it is really helpful to us. And when a new player comes in, we can link them straight to the team that they should be involved in. There's a great process behind that. They go into a waiting room where we can accept them. So, we're safe from a safeguarding and GDPR kind of side. And for us, it's better because it's closed off, and we can only speak to the players that are in the squad. Things like that. Just very simple things where it's a job that takes away from the time doing it, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So it's automated. So that's been the biggest thing for us. Just it's so easy to get parents involved in it. Send them the link to the team and they're straight in.
Absolutely, and you sort of mentioned a little bit of it there, but the sort of the communication aspect, especially with, well, firstly, using WhatsApp, which obviously not, you're not alone in that fact,
Yeah.
but also with the parents in the platform. How have you found the communication side, and being able to communicate with them through something like this app?
Yeah, so like I said, once the squad is selected, very much it'll notify the parent that they've been selected. And from our perspective, that's all we do. And we've never had any issues with people not turning up, things like that. They get notified, they're ready to go, they're in the squad. If there's any sort of change, cancellation, push notification goes out. Obviously recently in the UK, the weather's been horrendous, so we've had to cancel lots of games on the morning, night before. So things like that where we can just communicate with parents without going through a WhatsApp group or individually. It's easier for us to put a blanket out, and especially like the other Saturday, our home ground was unplayable, so we had 5 games. So again, we're talking 80, 100 students that didn't play, where we can notify those within a couple of minutes. So that's been a massive help to us.
Excellent. No, good to hear. I suppose the other sort of main question that a lot of people ask us, and me in particular, is around like the setting up
Yeah,
process. Obviously, a lot of people like yourselves will come from an environment where they might be using something, and they might be
yeah,
using databases, things like that. WhatsApp and all the rest of it. And obviously, the big sort of barrier to people is actually getting started and going through the process of
yeah,
setting something like this up, whether it is Teamo or anything else.
yeah.
I wonder if you could sort of give a bit of context, I suppose, or an understanding from your side as to how you found that, even sort of separate from Teamo, what sort of things you'd advise to clubs sort of considering going through something like this.
Yeah, I think for us, we always went back to the reason of it, and we're very open and honest with our parents and all our stakeholders that this is the reason why we're doing it. It's going to be more effective for the club in general, not just from a financial side, but from a communication side, from an alert side, from anything that's it can hold medical information if we need to. So there's all those parts of a player profile that we can link together. We still have that. There's mum and dad. So if you have a WhatsApp group, there's 3 numbers, and it's a constant cycle of data where for us, it simplifies it all. When we started it, we were open and honest with parents and said this is why we're doing it, and we had zero kickback, zero pushback from parents. It's very simple. It's very easy. They're just linked to their team. You can link multiple members over different teams, and if we ever had any questions or any issues, yourself, Ben, and the team have been straight with us to help us out.
Absolutely. And I suppose you've sort of already touched upon that. The next question I had was sort of how you found the onboarding process from actually physically using the platform yourself.
Yeah.
How that process felt when you were actually putting things together and starting to use the features and the tools.
Yeah, no, honestly, it was, I'm not just saying it because I'm sat on the call. It's a product that we use day in, day out, and it's something that's been a massive benefit to us as a football club and an organisation. And we're keen to obviously support Teamo and anything we can do to help you guys because you've helped us. Like you said, any questions that we had, any onboarding issues or processes that we needed more clarity on, you guys were straight there.
Lovely. And then I suppose another question that I had for you is what sort of advice you would have to any other football or other sports academies, or even football or other sports clubs that are considering using either Teemo or something similar. Like if there was anything sort of from your experience that you'd learn, or any bits of advice that you would be able to give them based on that.
The ease of use, the time efficiency, like I said, I won't want to keep going on about just the financial side, but that is a massive aspect of any organization. And wherever you're losing revenue, or subs, that's going to affect something else further down the line. So for us, it streamlined everything. It streamlined our onboarding process as a new player coming into the system, so we can get them straight in. And again, it's been nothing but beneficial to us as a football club. And I would advise anybody that's thinking about it, even if it's just one team, it's so much more manageable all the way through to, an organisation like ourselves. And I'm sure there's bigger ones out there that are our own Teamo and do require a system like this.
The sort of other area that I wanted to ask about, obviously, you mentioned there that you've got a few different bits and pieces, obviously, the agency side of the organization kicking off relatively recently.
Yeah.
Um, how have you sort of found the ability for you as an organization? Obviously, you grew to begin with, and that's why you sort of came towards something like this. But
Yeah.
how have you found the ability for you to go through and sort of grow with it, as it were?
Yeah.
Adding sort of maybe the different things that you as an organization want to do with what's there and in the platform currently.
Yeah, so obviously we've grown team by team is a very simple way of putting it. But also we use the club document area as well on Teamo, which is very important to us. We have VO cameras that review our games, so that's a good opportunity. Just little resources, things like that, that as a new parent that comes in, you know, it's very much information overload at times. However, if we can simplify that process, which we have done with Teamo, they sign in, they can access all the club documents that they need to, their code of conduct, what we expect. And again, it's just a very simple process for a new stakeholder coming into our organization.
Yeah, lovely. And I suppose this is actually sort of coming back. I probably should have asked it earlier when we were talking about finances, but it's popped back into my head.
Yeah.
Another things, especially grassroots organisations, obviously slightly more local based academies potentially.
Yeah.
One of the other sort of main drawbacks that people do talk about is the cost of processing payments through
Yeah.
something like this.
Yeah.
Obviously, with all of that is sort of part and parcel of it, I suppose. But I wonder what your sort of thoughts are as an organisation, how you've maybe managed that, and what you might say to clubs who are concerned about it, I suppose.
I think I think like anything, if it's a smaller transaction, a bigger transaction, there will be fees on it. But for us, once we know and we've got to gain an understanding of how much a transaction costs on the system, which is very little compared to bank charges, everything else that comes with it, and obviously the fee for Teamo a month is extremely low based on the system that it provides us, in my opinion,
Hmm.
and for the amount of members that we have, our active members and parents on the system. As obviously Team only charges per active member, but there's triple the amount of members because it's based on the parents on the system, all the connections that you have on the system again. So for us, it's a very cost-effective way to pull in that revenue.
In terms of the other element of this, I guess, as well, is, we've spoken about the parents, the players, and how they've benefited from it. I guess the other sort of area that we maybe haven't yet touched upon is those who also sort of work alongside you,
Yeah.
and use it from a managerial, a coaching perspective. I mean, so firstly, yeah, how
Yeah.
has that been sort of received from them?
Yeah, so we have each team is managed by an individual head coach. So we're up to 15 teams now on a weekly basis. So again, it's empowering the coach. They select their squad on the system, and the coach on that day will know the best of who played, who didn't play. Was there somebody that was sick that day, or whatever it may be, that they can just take them off. So after the game is finished, our coaches have a process, confirm who has been selected and who played. And as far as our perspective, the payments will then, the notification will go out to parents and the payments will be done. So again, it's peace of mind from me as an operations manager and a director, and very easy for our members of staff. Yeah, of course, you've got to educate them to start off with, but the process is very simple. Once it's all set up, they have an account on the profile with their team, and away they go.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose you touched upon it there as well. The sort of part B of that question was going to be how you'd found them sort of coming to terms and training, if you like, up to,
Yeah,
to using the platform. As
yeah,
another thing that people obviously do ask about and are sort of maybe slightly
yeah,
concerned about is how they not only engage the playing and the parental element of the organization, but also how
yeah,
they get the managers to engage with it as well.
yeah. It was a very simple process. I physically went, brought them in for five minutes, and just went through it and just said, "This is what we do. Any questions?" And then any questions came back to me. And if I didn't know anything, I'd go straight to you, Ben, or John, and you'd be back with me very shortly. So again, we've had no kickback from anybody. Zero pushback from either our coaches, parents, anybody involved in the club. And we have often have the either their cricket club uses Teamo or things like that. So they're used to the system anyway. Obviously, Teamo's growing as it is. So there's multiple clubs in it and around our area that use it as well. So parents are very happy to go, yeah, no problem, straight in. They've used the system before.
Excellent, lovely. So yeah, I mean, from my side, that sort of covers all the initial bits and pieces, all the main questions that I was going to ask. So we'll move now over to a couple of questions that you guys have sent across. Again, just another reminder, just before I do go through a couple of them, please do send across any questions that you have for either myself or Brad, and we'll do what we can to answer them. Um, so this first question. So it's a little more functional, but you might be able to weigh in, Brad, and sort of help
Yeah,
with your own experience on this. And it's sort of a bit sort of related to what we are talking about in terms of the coaches and the access. So basically saying, what the functionality is from an admin versus a user, basically. So I suppose probably easiest for me to start, just as it is a bit more functional. But
yeah,
essentially, for those of you who haven't come across the platform before or haven't utilized it, we have basically the app is fundamentally the same for everybody who logs into it. There's no sort of separate apps or logins for different people. And basically, you've got the sort of bottom end of the access, which is your players and your parents and guardians. They will essentially see information linked to the groups that they're in. Some of the bits that Brad's mentioned, being notified about payments, communications that they might be being sent based on events or otherwise. But essentially, that's sort of the main bit. There are some nice other little bits and pieces, again, that Brad's mentioned, things like club documents, other different bits that you can then link to them, and all of that sort of thing. Above that is what we were talking about just a moment ago, which is your manager role, and you can basically assign an individual as a manager to a specific team or group, but they can also be a manager of multiple groups there as well, and that gives them the ability to look through the member information, again, that we've discussed a little, sending out communications, pushing out fees, all of that sort of thing. But it is just linked to the members within the group that they are a manager of. And then at the very top is your admins, which Brad, I believe you are one of the admins at Evo, and that basically is all of the core functionality that we offer in terms of tools around setting the club up. The reporting on things like finances, the reporting on things like member information, and all the other sort of different bits and pieces in between. So that's essentially how that would work, and the differing levels. Which does actually bring us on quite nicely to another question here, which is actually, hopefully you'll be able to help a little bit on this as well, Brad, but a little bit more to do with actually the payment reporting side of things.
Yeah,
So obviously you mentioned that you guys have been using this for obviously pay as you play, subs, things like that. How have
yeah,
you found the actual ability to sort of look at the information that you want in terms of who has paid, who hasn't? Obviously, you mentioned collection rates are good, but how have you
yeah.
found sort of finding that information?
Yeah, well, recently with your newer feature of being able to just monitor missed payments in order of value as well, which has been a massive benefit to us. But for us, we can break it down per team, per season. There's different reporting aspects that we can do. I can look back on last season's, see which age group was
Mhm.
a potential issue moving into this season. Who are the parents that may need? The biggest thing for us is one, they forget, which is
Yeah.
a massive issue. So we wait. If it's Saturday that they due payments, we might make Tuesday, Wednesday. We might just send them a quick alert saying there's payments on your account. Happy days, and we can chase that. 'Cause obviously, the button on Teamo now is literally any missed payments request done, simple as. Or like I said, we can go really deep into it, pull off the exports per month, per team, per season. As far as we want to go from it. From a growth perspective, it's good for us to see the number of transactions and the number of players on the
Mm.
system. So again, that backs up our data in terms of how full our teams are, things like that you can look at. So it's not just about the transactional value; it's about the numbers and how many players. Or we can look at a team and say they averaged X amount of players per game day, just so we're making sure that we're maximizing it for everybody.
Excellent. Yeah. And in terms of, I suppose another nice little segue, because there is another question about this as well, but it does sort of go into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty elements of the payment system. For a bit of context before I sort of pose you the question, I suppose, Brad, we work with two main payment providers to facilitate payments being made directly through the platform. Those two providers that we work with are either Stripe or Go Cardless. So there might be some of you on the call, and yeah, who've used one or either of these before. You may even still have an account that your club's already using. From our side, you can connect that account up to us and continue to use it, even if you were to start completely afresh and you know change up what you were doing. That's all absolutely fine as well. Obviously, the only thing to consider is that you're obviously changing, the account you're using, where the money might be going. Members having to maybe add different payment methods, all that sort of stuff. So it's one of those that I guess needs a little bit of thought or preparation before you do start maybe moving some bits about. So I suppose the question that I'll come back to you on, linked to that, Brad, is firstly, which of the two have you been using, and secondly, how have you found that particular provider? Has that worked well for you, and collecting the payments from the more sort of mechanical element that obviously those providers offer?
Yeah. So we use Stripe, um, which has always been it from the start. For us, we've got it set it up that it just drops in weekly into our account. And honestly, we've had no issues with it, whatsoever. We can then work out our usual average weekly income from it as well. Obviously, weather permitting and games permitting, but for us, I get alerted straight away. We'll receive this from Stripe. We'll receive this today. This will hit your bank account. In terms of like refunds and things like that, any sort of issues and stuff like that, again, is obviously either through Stripe or through Teamo. So again, it's been very simple to do. So yeah, just drops in weekly.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. The next question I have again is a little bit more functional. One that I can take, which is basically asking about linking or uploading VO footage to the app. Um, at this moment in time, unfortunately, that isn't something that we have available. What we do have is the ability for you to share different media types within the platform. So some of the bits that we've been talking about, the chat function. There's also a news feed on the homepage of the app whereby you can put images, video, things like that. So that's sort of an alternative if you do have little clips and bits and pieces there. Um, uh, in the future, it may well be something that we do look to integrate. Just a lot of what we do is based around feedback that we get from clubs and any sort of gaps that we think we might be able to find and improve on. So I mean, what I can sort of turn that around as a question on for you there, Brad, is to sort of maybe advance on that a bit more is how you found sort of the feedback process, the options that you've had there from that point of view, and seeing those improvements as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, you and Ben and John and the team have been very open and honest with us, and if there's certain feedback things and elements that can be added, one of the massive things was the chasing payments. Can I just chase people that owe from that week or whatever it may be? That was added very quickly. I think going back to the sharing the video footage and things like that, obviously you could send that out via your squad day chat, which is another thing that you could do. So it's a link that can go out quickly. We post all our results, so our fixture coordinator will put in all our results for the games, and that populates our news feed on the app. So it connects our club from top to bottom, really, and it's connected to our social media as well, obviously. So, a parent at the under 14s can see the under 13s result because it'll come up, and it just gets better club connectivity from top to bottom, really. I think that was a good point for us from that news feed side that you mentioned on, which is massive for us.
But yeah, the other one that I've got here is around reporting on things like so they're basically asking, is it possible to go through and report on attendance and player statistics? So I suppose firstly my question to you is that actually something part of the platform that you've been using at all in your time in Teamo?
So Paul, our fixture secretary, he's been collating data. With the data collection, he's used it a lot for our men's team, our first team.
Hmm.
So that can give him good stats because obviously he can mark down goal scorers, he can mark down results and things like that, goals for, goes against, wins and losses, doesn't he? So again, he uses that function for the men's team, and it's something that we want to progress further eventually. It's not something that we overly use, to be honest with you. But again, I'm sure there's plenty of functionality in there. And again, if there's things that people want added, I'm sure they're more than welcome to fire it back to you, Ben, and see what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it's good to hear that there is obviously elements of that you're using. I suppose extra sort of context that I can add to that in terms of what the system does offer is there is the ability for, especially to training sessions, you can go through and mark a list of attendance to showcase who has come along to each of your training sessions. You also have a sign out register as well. So if you did need to go in and say, um, you know, all these players left the premises at X time, then you'll be able to do that and get a timestamp from it there as well. And when you do that, there is a sort of whole page that managers of the team can then access, which has those reports available that can be exported outside of the system. So that's something that you will be able to utilize. The other element, obviously, you sort of touched upon a little bit there that the fixture secretary has been using by the sounds of things, which is great, which is adding in scores, statistics based on, obviously for football specifically, you've got goals, assists, cards. There are a couple of other bits, obviously, depending on other sports that you can do as well. But again, the ability to report on that, export it out. It's always fun for players to be able to see how many goals they've scored and obviously how few cards they might have picked up as well, ideally. And that is information that not only a manager can look at, but it's also information that can be seen on the actual player's profile as well. So a nice little bit of fun for some of the players to be able to see exactly how they've been getting on. We have had another question again around the communication side of things. Um, so obviously there's some elements of this that I can answer, but what might be good is to maybe confirm and sort of get your overview on this particular feature as well. So you were talking earlier about cancelling sessions and getting information out
Yeah.
to the parents. Um, so you've obviously, I'm assuming, done that quite a lot, given
Yeah.
especially what you said earlier with the weather.
Yeah.
Um, so how has that sort of worked for you? I mean, have you been using the chat function to do that? Have you been using the event itself?
Both really. So we'll go direct to the event. Obviously, cancel it on the event, and it will give you a reason for it. And then once we've confirmed the reason for it, that'll be pushed out to parents as well. We also like to drop a message in to the selected squad, whoever it may be, in the game day chat, and just to confirm that the game is off or changed or whatever. And that obviously goes for changes as well. So if you make a change to a kickoff time, the system will say, "Would you like to send a notification out to all the squad?" Yep, straight away. So again, it just alleviates that from us, really.
Excellent. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and that's sort of the main bits, I suppose. The other sort of extra bit I'd add just to help sort of with the question is um, the notifications that get sent are either through the push notifications or like the broadcast messages, but also through the chat function, which obviously you've been using there, Brad, as well. So that's basically like the instant messaging system built into the platform. It works in a very similar way to that of a WhatsApp in the sense that you can send a direct message to somebody, just Wi-Fi data, whatever it might be. So it wouldn't necessarily go out as an SMS message, but it would go out and ping on their phone in the same way that any other notification would appear on any other Apple messaging function that they might be using. Um, there's also an extra question just based on this around how broadcast messages work. In sort of layman's terms, the broadcast message allows you to send out a individual but text message, but it goes out to multiple people in one go. So you can put, the same text in, you can select the recipients. It can be based on group, it can be based on individuals, but it just allows you to then get the messages out to people, yeah, relatively quickly and without having to individually write the same message as you send it out, essentially. But yeah, that looks like a wrap on that, really. So firstly, thank you very much to you, Brad, for joining us. Yeah, very insightful and really good to hear all the different bits and pieces and the ways that you've used the platform. And thank you to all of you guys who've joined us this evening as well. Obviously, if there's anything that we can do, if you want to get in contact with me, as I say, you should have my details on file. So please do send any questions across, whether it's something really small or you want to take a call and have a bit more of an individual chat. So all of that is available. So again, thank you very much to Brad. Thank you very much to all of you, and hopefully we'll be speaking with you again soon.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody.